Okay, welcome back to our channel. We're going to get right back into the body without delay, so let's get to it. Okay, moving on to one of the more terrifying parts of the car, and that's cutting a great big hole in your hood for the hood scoop. I decided to not go with the stock hood or stock scoop. This is the scoop off of a Ford GT350. You can get this part at Amazon. It's fiberglass, which means it's easier to bond to the car than the plastic one that comes with the kit. When you get it, you have to trim it down significantly. I trimmed it down so it was the same height, roughly, of the original scoop. It's about a ½ inch longer, but once it sets on there, once you got it all sorted out, I think it's going to look pretty good, and we're going to bond it right into the fiberglass. Well, the way you put this on in the book is they do it all from underneath the hood, but what we decided to do was it has to look good on the car, right? So we measured everything from the back of the hood onto the front of the hood to get our centers and all that. And we actually positioned it and measured it on the hood so we can see how it's going to look on the car when it's done. So we got all of our measurements correct, and we were able to lay it in place exactly where it's going to be on the car. And then we measured again to make sure that the scoop is centered on the hood. We talked about whether we center it on the body or we center it on the hood. Well, if you center it on the hood, if your hood is installed correctly and centered in the car, if you install it on the hood centered and the hood is off a little, you can move the hood a little to get it centered on the car. Long story short, we centered it to the hood, okay? Once we get everything positioned, we're basically doing it as the book said, but we're doing it from the top instead of the bottom, all right? So here is the outline of the hood. It's been measured, or of the scoop. It's been measured and remeasured probably a half a dozen times. So we're confident we have it where we want it right here. This bottom line right here, I don't know if you can see it. There's a line drawn right across here. This is about 2 inches in from the end of the hood. Correction, 1.5 inches. As it says in the book. The book says 2 inches. We backed it down to 1.5 inches. The other thing we're going to do is the book says you go inside a full inch all the way around. Because we're going to actually fiberglass it from underneath, we're going to want to reach that fiberglass up over that ledge and get it up against the sides of the fiberglass here from the bottom. I don't want that to be a full inch. We're going to back that down to a ½ inch to make it easier to work that fiberglass in and make sure we get a good bond all the way around the fiberglass. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw our ½ inch line. We're going to cut the hood. And then this will be epoxied in place from the top. And then we'll take the hood off, we'll flip it over, and we'll actually use fiberglass cloth to cloth and fiberglass this thing in place from the bottom as well. Then when we're done with that, we'll knock the glaze off it. We'll use some, probably a little bit of Everlast around the edges and get it all molded into the hood of the car so it looks like one solid piece. Okay, so this tape is our cut line. This is a ½ inch wide tape. Our cut line is going to be on the inside of this tape. Okay, we've made our measurements and we've checked them twice. Now we're going to use the air saw to go ahead and cut the hole in the hood, which is quite frankly terrifying. Okay, so there's a completed hole. You can see we've already gone around and roughed it up even more so we get the epoxy to bond really well, and we've cleaned up the edge with a sander. We've also gone around and broken up the gel coat to give us a good surface to adhere to. What we're going to use to put all this together is some JB Weld reinforced epoxy that does specifically say it's good for fiberglass, and we've got a fiberglass repair kit with some cloth and resin that we'll use to glass it from the bottom side. All right, and the epoxy we used is the 4-hour epoxy. I wouldn't recommend the 10-minute epoxy. That's probably going to put you in a bind. We've remarked the outer diameter, and now we're just going to apply a thin line of the epoxy along the line we just drew, and then we're going to tape the hood scoop in place. Oh, that looks really good right there. Maybe a fraction towards me. Just a fraction. There you go. Ooh, and I've got a wonderful bead right now. All right, well, there you have it. We've got it epoxied in place. We'll clean it up a little bit more, and then we're going to let it set overnight. Okay, so we've gone and removed the hood from the car, and we've flipped it upside down. Now what we're doing is we're just going around and we're cleaning up the edges, and we're making sure we have a good surface to go ahead and apply the fiberglass we're going to use to secure it from the inside. Okay, so we've cleaned everything up. We have sanded underneath the lip, underneath here, to give good purchase to the fiberglass. And you can see we've cut a 1-inch fiberglass strip. We have several of them actually. And what we're going to do is we're going to run fiberglass up along underneath this edge here to further secure the hood scoop in place. Okay, we trimmed our fiberglass strips up into little pieces to make it a little easier to work with. If you've got one big long piece, it can turn into a handful. So this will just make things go a little smoother, especially at the top where you go around the corners.
Tamp it up under there.
Mm-hmm. So as Gary lays the epoxy down, I'm following behind and laying the cloth in, and I'm using a little piece of a paint stick to kind of reach underneath and make sure I get a good seal. And then after I put this in, Gary will follow behind me and put resin over the top of it and soak the cloth really good. And then I'll go behind him and make sure we got a good pressed fit in there. I think that's good. I'll trim all that excess off when it dries. The reason we flipped it over at the end is so that we want any resin to run down, and then we can just sand it off later as opposed to puddling inside the bottom of the scoop, which would technically be the top of the scoop. All right, here's a good picture of what it looks like once we actually cleaned the glue up with some acetone before it hardened up. So that's why we got that nice fine line all the way around the outside there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go in this little groove here and we're going to rough it up so that we can apply some of the short strand fiberglass and create a nice little fillet all the way around the outside of the scoop. All right, you can see we got it all sanded and looking good. We've gone ahead and used some 220 to rough up the edges, and now we're going to use the lightweight Evercoat with the short strand fiberglass, and we're going to run a fillet along the side of it. And this is going to help us get the finish we want, but as an added bonus, it'll also provide a little bit of structural integrity to help hold it in place. Here's a good look of that fillet going around the edges. And once this sets up, we'll sand it down and make it look pretty. Okay, what we're looking at here is after we cut out the hole, there's actually 2 layers to the hood, and in some parts there's a gap where there's no adhesive holding together. So what we've gone and done is I got some of the 2-part epoxy, the same JB Weld that I used to secure the scoop, and I got a putty version of it, so it's a little bit thicker, and I use that to jam it in those gaps. And now on the bottom, a light coat around the edge, just to be able to smooth it out and get the good finish we want. So we're going to go ahead and hit this with the DA sander first with some 60 grit, then I'm going to follow it up with some 100 grit on a block, and then some 220 on a block till we get all this cleaned up and looking good. And then this whole trunk lid, or correction, hood lid, will be able to set aside, and it'll be wait until we do the final skim coat over the top of everything to smooth it out. So that's what we're going to do now. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. And before we're finished, if you remember, we also put a light coat along the outside edge right here. So we're going to go ahead and sand that up, get it nice and smooth, and get a good little curve on it. And that'll tidy this up. All right, so we've hit it with the DA, we've hit it with the sanding block, and now what I want to do is I want to make sure that this radius is the radius I want. I don't want it to be sharp because I want some material in here to A, make it look smoother and mold it in, and also give it a little more support. So what we're going to use to finish this up is we got a 7/16 wooden dowel, and we're going to cut a chunk off of this, and we're going to wrap some sandpaper around it, and that's how we're going to finish up and get this radius even all the way around. Okay, and there it is completed. We've got a really nice rounded edge right here. Everything's really smooth, almost no pits at all. Came out really well. Well, all right, until we're ready to put a skim coat on the entire car, this baby is done, and I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. So that's it for this video. On the next one, we're going to go back to the doors and start to get those all finalized and start moving closer to our first shot of primer. So please don't forget to like and subscribe and check out our next video.